Hi folks! Welcome to another edition of the Friday Hi-5 features. So today I thought that we'd talk a little bit about education because in my area we started school this week. So first up is Khan Academy. I don't know about you, but when my kid brings home a math word problem or I have to deconstruct a sentence, I start to sweat a little bit and I spend more hours at the kitchen table figuring out my child's homework than probably my child. So in some instances, I'm looking for another person of expertise, people that have this knowledge readily available. And what better than the internet, right? Of course, you've got to be careful what you look for and what you digest, but that's why we have Khan Academy. So Khan Academy is this wonderful resource of various different subjects that are broken down into snackable modules. You watch the video, your kid watches the video, and you can understand the concept. You can continuously watch and review the concepts until it makes sense to you. I recommend this for both, your kids, when they're stumped with something at school or a piece of homework, but also for you. I mean, this is some really great refresher course material. And you might want to start out with the statistics. I know a lot of people, throw around numbers and everything else all day long and talk about cause versus correlation. And there are great people like Tom Webster in the space who know exactly what they're talking about. And then there are others that grabbing for the nearest thing. So take a peek. Figure out what piques your interest. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. So next up is our nonfiction book of the week. And, along the same lines of, figuring out what we do and what we do know, what is our passion, what is our interest. I really found the book The Element by Sir Ken Robinson to be incredibly insightful. I first came across Sir Ken Robinson on his TED Talks. He's got two TED Talks now, one in 2006, one recently. And, this book goes beyond just the problems that are within our school systems and about how we learn and how we grow the next generation. But it also causes one to think and reflect upon what we consider to be our strengths, our weaknesses, and what we do to cultivate our strengths. A lot of us are stuck, in jobs that, you just don't like. And, when do you move on? How do you move on? Where do you move on? So if you need some inspiration, I, highly encourage the book, The Element. Like I said, you don't have to be interested or care a lick about, the school system or how it's going to be reformed. Sir Ken Robinson shares stories, and these stories are powerful. And you'll recognize a lot of names, and you'll find things out that you didn't know. So that's always a good thing when you read a book, right? Next up, fiction book. So, I'm a big science fiction person. And I thought kind of like, if we were talking about education this week, what would be an interesting book? So one came to mind because I read this as part of an English lit course in college. But, it, education, when you think education, I think ultimately, at least my first instinct is to think about my childhood. So Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, depicts aliens that come over and take over the world as we know it and govern by indirect rule. And then when they reveal themselves, it starts a golden age for the race. And, it's interesting as you see the race evolve over time, and under this leadership, you start to think about, who the aliens are in your life experience and reflect about how you were taught, who you were taught by, and how you've grown over the years. So, interesting read, not too long. It's a 1950s science fiction novel that, still seems to inspire today. Post of the week. Usually I try to look beyond the bubble, so to speak, for different posts that will resonate. But I found the post earlier this week, Back to the Wrong School by Seth Godin, to, fall in line with some of the other things that I was consuming this week. And, it really goes back to, in this post-industrial revolution, how are we educating our children? How do we want to foster that next generation? We don't know what's going to be around in a couple of years. How do we teach for that? And what type of environments, inspire and develop the elements within? Which leads to our offline inspiration. So I already told you the nonfiction book of the week. Highly recommend The Element by Sir Ken Robinson. But if you don't want to take the time to physically read the book, then I suggest you listen to the audio book. If you've watched the TED Talk videos, only Sir Ken Robinson can deliver such stories in, dry humor, wit. Just it's wonderful to hear him share these stories in his own voice. So make sure you read the audiobook narrated by him. So everybody have a great week, a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week. Oh, and by the way, check out below where I'm going to be speaking next, what events I'll be attending, because I'd like to say hi. All right?